Good evening, everybody. This is the Sherman Park Eco third Thursday webinar on April 20th, 2023. And I'm Tim Perkins. I'm one of the Eco ambassadors, the Eco Office neighborhood ambassadors, along with Steve O'Connell and Ann Knadler, who are with us tonight, and Mabel Lamb, who's behind the Sherman Park Community Association logo. We're glad to have, there she is, glad to have Terry Evans, who's the manager of the Urban Ecology Center in Washington Park, is going to share some about the exciting things that are going on in Washington Park and some of the programming. And there'll be opportunity to ask Terry some questions tonight. We also have Joe Fitzgerald and Eric Stole from the Milwaukee Water Commons. Eric, tell me how do you pronounce your last name again? I just pronounced it.
I don't know. I kind of like hearing it done different every time.
That's kind of cool.
Desatel.
Desatel, yeah.
Desatel, yeah. So apologies. Eric Desatel and Joe Fitzgerald from Milwaukee Water Commons. We're going to talk about the branch out program here in Sherman Park and Arbor Day and the tree inventory and our tree board, and bring you up to date on all of that, also to inform you about tree maintenance and tree care and tree planting. So a full webinar tonight, and we're looking forward to all the good information and opportunity to share as people who care about the environment of Sherman Park and Milwaukee and environmental justice. So Mabel, do you have anything to say as our director of the Sherman Park Community Association?
Sure. Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. Welcome to everyone. We are extremely excited about this webinar tonight. It's great information. Please share it with those residents that you know, friends, relatives. Be sure to share the information. Lots of great programming happening at the Urban Ecology Center this summer, as well as projects and programming that's happening through Milwaukee Water Commons through the Branch Out program. So yay, we're excited. So we want you to be excited too. Thank you all for joining us.
And thank you for all the support from Sherman Park Community Association and from our neighbors. So, and Terry is one of our neighbors in Washington Park with the Urban Ecology Center. So Terry, welcome to our Sherman Park Eco webinar. We give thanks for your presence this evening. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here on tonight. Okay, there we go. So yeah, my name is Terry Evans. I'm the branch director at the Urban Ecology Center located in Washington Park. I think this is a great opportunity tonight to kind of share the work that we're doing, but then also to invite all of you out to be a part of what we're doing, and likewise for us to join you on some of your efforts in Washington, Sherman Park area, because we're connected because we're all in the same city, but we're even more closely connected because we are basically neighbors. We're community neighbors, residents, organizations working together. And so that's what we're about at the Urban Ecology Center, is really developing partnerships with other like-minded agencies and with residents to create a better Milwaukee for families and for residents. So I'm excited to definitely be here tonight. I'm excited about Arbor Day coming up as well. I got my invite, so I'm gonna have a table for that. So I just wanted to let Joe know. Thank you for the introduction of Jesse, Joe. What's happening in Washington Park? So we have a lot of things happening in Washington Park, and I want to share with you just a few of those things. And kind of in any time, like while I'm talking, anytime that you will have a question, please feel free to ask me right away. Because I know when somebody's presenting in front of me, sometimes I forget to be able to ask those questions, and I'm sitting here after the meeting wanting to ask so many more questions that I forgot about. So we're all about engaging the community, engaging families in every way possible as it relates to the environment. We engage the community, we connect the community, and we provide while providing like quality programming. So what I did was I was gonna put a whole bunch of things on the slide, but then I said I'll just do some bullet points and kind of expand from that. So engaging And if engaging for us is engaging the community in the wonderful work that we do, and tying those both together in our park. And we tie the work that we do, we tie that through events, we tie that through workshops, lectures, programming, or just even people coming to our space just to find out a little bit more about the work that we do. So we try to engage in every way. That's become more of our focus, is neighborhood engagement, community engagement, and looking at the residents that are, and so there's 3 branches of the Urban Ecology Center. We have a Menominee Valley branch, we have a Riverside Park branch, and then we have our wonderful Washington Park branch. And so we're trying to really reach out a little bit more and connect more and engage more with stakeholders, community stakeholders, businesses, churches, residents as well. So there's a lot that goes within that, engaging the community in every way possible. We're looking to connect. We're connecting people to spaces, connecting people to adventures of nature through accessible educational and at little or no cost. So what we mean by that is, while we're engaging people and while we're looking at, things that people can do in park, we want to activate the park as well. While we teach and while people learn, we want to continuously connect people to each other, to other residents in the community, and connecting them in Washington Park is a great opportunity because we have a park that has so much history. We provide a lot of programming, quality programming. So we have a couple different areas of programming that we offer. We offer programming through our land stewardship program, where anybody can come, and I invite you all to come out, maybe even as a Sherman Park group, to volunteer to do some work or restoration work on our land. And then by doing that, you can also find out about other things that we're doing in terms of restoration work. We're currently in the process of restoring 10 acres of land. We have a 20-year plan that involves close to 20 acres of land within Washington Park, where we're restoring those areas back to their natural areas. So that's really exciting to see people coming in from all over Wisconsin, as well as all over the world, that have come to kind of look at the work that we've done. And so our programming is really specific to like families, but it's also specific to kids. And so we have a NEAT program as well, and that's the Neighborhood Environmental Education Project. And some of these kids that you'll see in these pictures are part of that. And they've come from different schools. So our focus is, we look at schools within a 2-mile radius of Washington Park, because then that's a distance that we look at, that if kids and families don't have bus, don't have a vehicle, they are able to walk to the park to be a part of these programs. And that's exciting, because we want the community to know that's around us that this is a park for you. This is a park that should be serving you as a resident, and a park that you should be proud of. And there's so many different things to enjoy within Washington Park on a daily basis. We have our PEAT program, which is our preschool environmental education project. And so while we work with the NEAT program, we work with kids that are in first through 12th grade. We also work with our preschoolers. So we're looking to have more of a focus on looking at the daycares, looking at Next Door Foundation, looking at these younger kids to help them to develop the relationship with nature. And hopefully, like at the end, when you think about everything, when you think about the end of the day, we want all the kids that we work with to eventually become mentors of the environment, mentors of nature, and to be able to pass this along to their kids when they get older and when they have kids. So it's really exciting. We want to build an environmentally sound community with no barriers to empowerment for all. And so we try to make all of our programs accessible. And as we get to the third slide, I have a rundown of the list of different programs that we offer, but we also offer like research and community science. So it gives a chance for residents, for the community to come in and see some of the work that we're doing in terms of, it could be as simple as a bat monitoring or birding, and the research and the work that we do with birding, with bat surveys. We also have an insect survey that we do, and looking at, based on the restoration work that we've done, what new insects are we seeing in the park that are helping to develop the park. Oh, went backwards. So now we're looking at like protect, preserving, promote, and practice. And so that again, with protect, is protecting our public natural areas, making them safe, accessible, and vibrant. So what we mean by that is, like, we're looking at the restoration work as well as we're looking at how can we make Washington Park safer. So it's just not the environmental piece because everything is tied in. And so I like to think of it, and I always use the analogy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so while we're looking at the environment and we're looking at the natural areas, we also have to look at the things that are affecting our community that necessarily aren't part of that environmental piece. And that's where it comes in, where you have healthcare issues, where you have crime. So we try to address those things while we're also addressing the environmental piece and bringing people in to our building and using our building as a vessel for entry into the park to find out other ways that the community can use the park. And so what we look to do with that is we look to like preserving, enhancing natural areas, and even our surrounding water. So we have not a natural body of water, but we have a body of water that was created in Washington Park that allows for us to do so many activities, and it attracts so many different animals and different insects. And we really like to use that for our teaching. So we work a lot with the DNR. We're looking at ways that we can restore the lagoon that's in Washington Park because we do a lot of fishing programs there. And so we have a lot of residents that want to fish, but they also want to keep as well. And like example for even like last year we held 7 fishing clinics. We held fishing clinics all the way from April till October. And that shows you the level of interest that fishing has, but then also people are actually using, they're catching, they're not releasing, they're catching and keeping the fish. So we had to do, last year alone, we did 3 stocking. We had 3 days in which we stocked the lagoon. And that's anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 fish that we stocked 3 times in that lagoon. So that lets you know the number of fish that we are putting in the lagoon, that people are fishing and keeping and taking home. So that's so that we use that water source as really a teaching tool through like water monitoring. It's amazing to see the number of different bird species that have come through or that continue to come through Washington Park, where when we first started, we've been in Washington Park 16 years, and it's still every day feels like it's the first day that we've been here for the community. And so we're geared up to try to do more and to try to be a staple within Washington Park that people know that they can come to, because it's amazing as we do canvassing and we talk to people, it's amazing what people are saying, oh, I just thought it was the old boathouse, you know? And so I get that a lot. And so that means, to me, that's great, because that shows we have a lot of work to do in connecting to the community on a regular daily basis. And that's exciting to be able to do that. Promote community by offering resources that support learning, volunteerism, stewardship, recreation, and camaraderie. And bringing the community together and having a space for the community in Washington Park is a great thing. It's a great opportunity to bring people into Washington Park to find out about the work we do, but then just to find out about Washington Park itself and the programming that could take place and the resources that are in Washington Park are really exciting. And when people come into our building, yes, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Yes, it's an older building, but it's a building with so much history, as well as it's a teaching space. And that's what we always try to come back to, is that it's a meetup. It's that third space that people can come to if they want a cup of coffee, if they just want to hang out and read the newspaper, if they want to play. We have games nights on Thursdays where you can come and you can play checkers, you can play chess, you can play Uno, you can play a number of different things. So we want to be that space where people can come to and treat it and have it be a place that they feel comfortable coming to on a daily basis, and then practice. And so the one thing we do want to make sure is that we practice and we model environmentally responsible behaviors. And so that's one of the things that our focus is, and our focus is like that land stewardship, the environment, teaching kids about the natural spaces, the natural areas within the park, but we also want to make sure that we're practicing those behaviors. And a simple example for me is just like all of our events that we've had. When I first started 7 years ago, our events were a lot of our events had plastics in them. Now I can honestly say that the last 2 years, our events that we've had have had no plastic. And so that's a great way to show the community what you're doing, but then also a way to teach the community about what they can do as well in being environmentally responsible. And that's exciting to me. Like everything that we do is like exciting because it always seems so fresh and so new to me. So I get giddy over it all the time. This next slide, as you can see, the kids on the bus. And so we do provide transportation for some of our programming. This is our in-school group that comes from Bethune Academy. And so they come and they do programming with us during the day. But then we also offer this same bus if we're doing a program. So we, in the past, we picked up the kids from Mary Ryan Boys and Girls Club and we brought them over to the Urban Ecology Center for a program. And so we do provide those opportunities so it doesn't come into a big cost for that organization to be able to just have busing for 15 kids, because usually it jumps up to, well, you're going to need a 40, 50 passenger bus, which goes into a couple $100s. So we do pick schools up as well as after school organizations up for the different programs that we offer. So we have land stewardship, we have NEEP, we have PEEP, we have neighborhood engagement. Neighborhood engagement is the one area that I directly supervise. So I have a team of 2 that goes out into the neighborhood and does door-to-doors. But a lot of the neighborhood engagement that we do in trying to engage the neighborhood is based on us collaborating and the partnerships that we have with various organizations, various churches, various businesses. And so that's where I see this as a great opportunity to connect with the Sherman Park Residents Association, but connecting with residents to be able to offer these different programs up, but then to also be able to partner and to be able to continue to talk to people about the wonderful work that we do on a consistent basis. We have equipment lending. In our equipment lending programs, if you're a member, you can borrow equipment for free. And that's exciting because we have bikes, we have canoes, we have kayaks, we have snowshoes, we have cross-country skis, we have some camping equipment. So there's a wide range of things that we have that members can borrow. And I think it's great because then we team that equipment lending program up with accessibility program. And what I mean by accessibility programming is we have residents that just can't afford the $60 membership, and we know that, we understand and respect that. But we also want to make sure that they have access to that same equipment. And so we have access days that we have during the summer and during the winter, and that will be more consistent with as we go on through the next couple of years, where these are opportunities that are geared towards our residents and getting our residents involved. And you'd be surprised, like, I mean, I never, it's interesting when you have a kid that comes in and has an experience and is on a pedal boat or a canoe. But then the question that really kind of saddens me is that I had a kid that asked me, is this the lakefront? So we're really making that effort and a point to make sure that there's access in the Washington Park community for our equipment and for people to borrow our equipment and use that equipment within Washington Park. And I can't stress that enough because there's so many people that don't have access in the city of Milwaukee that this is a great opportunity to collaborate, to partner. So, and again, I offer this out to you all. If there's opportunities for us to partner and to bring a group in to try something that we're doing, then I'm all open for it. My door is always open. My email's always there to see how we can work together and what's the best way for us to work together. We have our community programs, and our community programs primarily works with like your Boys and Girls Clubs, your COAs, your after-school programs, but they also will work with the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. They have in the past. Sojourner Truth Peace Center, we've worked with them before. So we work with a number of different groups and different backgrounds and providing opportunities with the different programming that we do. And so there's always an opportunity for that through our community programs department as well. We have summer camps going on this summer. And I'll talk a little bit in general about summer camps. And it is what I'm saying is it is summer camps. It's an opportunity for kids to be outside all day, every day. All of our camps are geared towards outdoor play. And so that's a great thing because some of our kids have too much screen time. And so when parents put their kids in the summer camp, they're putting their kids in summer camp to have an outdoor experience, which is great. And it allows for us and our teachers and our educators to really be able to teach the kids in a fun, different way. So these are kids that are part of a nature and robotics, arts camp, arts and nature, canoeing camp, biking camp, so fishing camp. So you have so many different outdoor recreational camps that are offered in our summer camps. And the great thing about it too is that our camps are all on a sliding scale. So based on income, that's how that resident or that person would pay for the camp. So it provides anybody and everybody an opportunity to come to camp. Well, depending on what their income is, some people come to camp free. So we offer scholarships as well as the sliding scale program, which is a great opportunity for our kids. And what I've seen, in my experience, when I talk to teachers from our NEAT program that are bringing kids in from Bethune, from Hawley, from different schools around. And the crazy part about it is there's like over 40 schools within a 2-mile range. So there's over 40 schools within that Sherman Park, Metcalf Park, Washington Park area. That's a lot of schools, that's a lot of families. And a lot of our kids are doing great in our programming that we do with the NEAT because there's a in-class component, which only lasts about an hour, but then there's a component where you're going out to the biggest classroom of all, which is the park. And you'll see so many kids where key teachers are saying, oh, wow, this kid has so many discipline issues, but when I bring them here to the Urban Ecology Center, they do some of their best learning because it's hands-on learning, it's an experience that they get, it's nature, which is part of a prescription. Nothing better than using nature as a prescription for health, for mental health, for physical health needs, and things like that. So I think as a society, we really need to look at that in terms of how do we use nature to help build families, to help to build health, physical and mental health, which is really exciting on our end that we're getting to do that. Then we have the volunteering program, which I said before, offers opportunities to volunteer with NEAT, PEEP. You can volunteer with just about any program that's on here. We have a volunteer opportunity for. So there's always ways that we can link. We work a lot with schools, with the high schools, because a lot of our kids are going to need 20 hours of community service to graduate. And so if you have kids, teenagers that need to do community service for those hours to graduate, we're a place. Definitely keep us in mind. But then also not just the school piece, there's also the piece of people that have had some problems or some troubles with the law. We do community service as well on that point. And so there's second chances for everybody. And so we want to make sure that we're not just, one-minded in who can volunteer and who's going to have that opportunity. So we work with probation and parole to give people opportunities to be able to volunteer to knock down some of those hours that they have. Then I've also talked about research and community science. So this is the base of all the programming that we do over at Washington Park and all 3 of our branches. And so what I'll do right now is I'll stop and I'll take a breather and I'll see if anybody has any questions up to this point regarding any of our programs.
I think Terry wanted to your credit, one of our young people on our tree board was in your program last summer, Eliana Melendez. And she's
Yes.
one of the teens volunteering with the kids. So she's all excited and blossomed right into serving on our board, tree board. So that's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it's all about young people finding their way and finding that connection, which is great,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Terry, what kind of fish do you put in the lagoon?
Oh, wow. That's the toughest question of the night. It may be. So sunfish, perch, rainbow trout, some bluegill, and some bass.
I would imagine that would you say that the water in the lagoon is healthier than in Lake Michigan? As far as plastics in the water? Although your fish probably aren't in there long enough to get full of plastics.
No, they're not in there long enough. I don't want to say, I would like to think yes. I would think the lagoon has some ways to go in terms of we are looking at how we can restore that and reline it, or if we need to drudge it or whatever needs to happen. That's a real big conversation that we've been having in some of the studies that we've had done. But like I said, it's definitely a viable lagoon, and it's a good lagoon that gets a lot of attention in terms of the number of people that come there every day, which is really great, you know.
Where do you
So-
get the fish from? Are they from a farm?
Yes, we get them from the fish hatchery out in Franklin.
Oh, okay.
And then also with the DNR, they'll do like the bass drop. So they come out with a truck, and then and everything to me is like a learning opportunity. So when I think about the truck, what we do is they call us before they bring the truck out and say, we're coming out Wednesday about 9 or 10. So we get our classes ready. So then it's a learning experience for the kids. And it's so cool to see the fish shoot out of this, almost like this hose, and go into the lagoon. But then what they do is they'll stop it, and they'll pull out a whole bunch of fish for the kids to kind of touch to see how they feel. And then they can ask questions and things like that. So there's always a learning opportunity through everything that we do for people to learn and kind of get a better understanding of the work that we do.
Sounds great.
Right. So I will move on to the, so this is my first half of the slides of what we do. Now the second half of my slides is we are renovating and expanding, and it's so exciting. So the picture that you're seeing now is a picture of the new building and how that building will look. The only piece on here on the bottom picture that is not on this drawing, and I can't believe I missed it, is that if you've ever been to Riverside Park location, they have an observation deck. We will have an observation deck at this branch as well. So it's going to be exciting to be able to look over most of the park, and then to be able to turn around and look at the Washington Park neighborhood, and to kind of see, just to kind of see and sit up there and take it in. And so I'm excited about giving people that opportunity to go up there on that observation deck, because again, that's a learning piece. That's where you can grab a pair of binoculars and do birding and look at the different birds that come through Washington Park on a daily basis. So we are excited about the renovation and expanding. And so what I mean with the renovation is that we'll be going from 13 schools to 31 schools within that 2-mile radius and increasing our programming. So our programming should and would increase on every level when I think about land stewardship, when I think about NEAP, when I think about PEEP community programs. And so these are opportunities for us to reach more students, and an opportunity for us to reach more families and more people overall. So it's very exciting. And then also the why is the building is over 40 years old. So we have a lot of HVAC system issues. We have a lot of just having an older building, the HVAC, heating, windows, things just aren't working as properly as they should be working, and just really inefficient and out of date. So we want to give the community something that they can be proud of, a beacon for that neighborhood, and moving forward. And so that's one of our other reasons for the why. And so when and where the renovation and expansion will take place on site, it's going to be currently on our current footprint. Most of the expansion is going up and not going out. So we're not taking away. I think there may be about 300 to 400 square feet of expanding out that we're going to be using in terms of green space, but most of the renovation is going up. And so 13,000 of that is going up. Most of it's going up, and that 15,000 is a renovation of the current building. So we're not looking at tearing down the building. We're looking at adding to the building and creating a new building within that structure. Yeah, so we're looking at trying to get this going. we're looking at wanting to close our building to the community for about a week at the end of May, beginning of June. We'll still be located within the park and still be doing programming, but we'll be located in a trailer up near the pool area. So we'll still be we'll still be doing programming. It's just we'll be doing programming in a different area and doing outreach for the community in a different area. But again, the construction plan is to start in July of this summer. And then the renovation would be 13 to 15 months long, where we would be in a trailer. And then what excites us? Excites us to be a beacon in the neighborhood, the learning opportunity at every level, from learning what the community's needs and wants are. And we had a few community feedback sessions to see what the community wanted and what they envisioned. And I think a lot of the community is looking at like, okay, so can it have a community center feel? And so we're trying to make sure that we have a community center / nature center feel when people come into the building, so that we can just about do any kind of programming that we want in that building. And hopefully that programming in the building will lead out, and that building will continue to be a vessel to go out into the park for programming opportunities as well. We want it to be a community gathering space for the community to meet up, to be able to have meetings. So if you all have in-person meetings and you need a space, please reach out to me once this building is built or renovated, so that we can get you in for a meeting. We really are focused on that and supporting the community meeting wise, and then the needs that the community may have. We're excited about our partnership with County Parks. You know, like I said, we've been in the park close to 16 years. And so it's been a long-term relationship. And then our commitment to the community. This further strengthens our community, our commitment, and lets the community know that we're here to stay, and we're here to be engaged with the community, and here to be a great neighbor, a great resident as well in the community. And then I love the fact like that, you know, that jobs are going to be created out of this as well, whether it be on the construction side, but then us being able to hire new educators and new staff to help run this building. And that most excites me. And because as we're going through this whole process, I'm continuously looking at how can the community still can be engaged as this renovation takes place. And so we're looking at different ways, like inviting Bethune and those kids over to maybe help to decorate a wall. Is there a mural that we could put in the building that's done by artists that are in the Washington Park neighborhood with the kids that live in the neighborhood? So we're always looking at engagement activities to further work with those residents and to further let the residents know that we're here to stay, but then also taking ownership, you know, residents having ownership and saying, hey, there's no better feeling than a resident that works in construction, that worked on that particular building, that lives in that particular neighborhood. So I'm excited at the opportunity to be able to do that. But what most excites me too is the fact that we're going to be able to provide, I think it's close to 2 internships, hopefully paid, to Washington Park high school students that have an interest and want to find out more about, you know, the construction piece of it, or marketing piece of it, or financing piece of it. That's what we're trying to create too, is an opportunity for our teenagers as well. I'm hoping to get 3 students paid for this internship. And so I'm shooting for 3, but I think it's such a great opportunity for our young people as well, because we hire young people through our Outdoor Leader program. And that's a program where we hire young people for the school year, and then we hire young people for the summer. So in the past, we've hired up to 18 students, and that's 6 at each branch. This year it's scaled down just because we'll have less space in the trailer. So we won't have enough space for the 6 kids, but we'll have 3. But it's still an opportunity for kids to be involved, to understand about the work we do, and to get involved with us at that beginner level. So if you have teenagers that are interested in wanting to do this kind of work, or just even wanting to find out about it doesn't necessarily have to be interest, but I know as a kid, I was experimenting, trying to find out where my niche was and what I wanted to do. So if you have those kids, that's great. please forward them my way. We can always look and see and get them in and talk to them and see about, what, where their interest really lies at, or is it just wanting to take a stab at it and see how is it? How is doing land stewardship? How is doing engagement? How is doing working with community programs and some of the younger kids that come to our programs? And so with that being said, I'll offer up any more questions that people may have, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those. Yeah, but I think it's an exciting time in Washington Park for residents as well as for us and stakeholders around.
Thank you, Terry. That's incredibly exciting. Yeah, what are the hours of operation?
Yeah, right now, we're open to the public from 12 to 6, Tuesday through Friday. Mondays, we're closed to the public. Saturdays, we're open from 9 to 3. So even with this new building, when this new building goes up, those needs could change, those hours could change based on, we're definitely really looking at what is it that the community needs and how can we respond and how can we react to those needs.
Terry, are you guys excited about the possibility of taking down the expressway?
Yes, if it's done the right way,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I think it's another way to connect communities.
It will. And more green space for you guys.
More green space, exactly.
It'd be lovely.
Yes.
So Terry, do you have any events coming up in the next month and a half?
Yes, we do. We have a fishing clinic just about every month. And I can send you the flyers for those fishing clinics so that you have them. We also have, just trying to think here, fishing clinics. We have our healthy cooking demonstrations, which we're partnering with United Methodist and the library to do. And then we have our environmental and social justice film series. And that runs until July. So we have different films that we show, and then we have talkback sessions and have some great moderators that help with the talkback sessions for that as well. And the great thing about the events and things that we're having, there's no cost.
Oh, that's great.
We're asking for residents and people to show up and have the UEC experience.
Wonderful. So we'll make sure we get this webinar recording out to people and promote Urban Ecology Center, and look forward to further collaborations and good green work together. Do you have a cleanup scheduled at all in Washington Park?
Yeah. Yes, you're asking all the right questions, so thank you. Yes, we have a cleanup scheduled for Saturday, April 22nd, Earth Day, and that'll be from 9 till noon.
Great, thank you.
That's in partnership with Milwaukee River Keepers, and then we're trying to have people go to the event that Milwaukee River Keepers has at Harley-Davidson as well, Rock the Green.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terry. Thank you. And thank you for all the good work of urban ecology centers throughout the city.
Thank you.
It's a gift. So, and we'll be celebrating Ken Leinbach's retirement this year as well, right?
Yes, in June.
The founder of Urban Ecology Center in June.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And we give thanks for all the good work. And we give thanks for the good work that Joe and Eric are doing on behalf of Milwaukee Water Commons here in Sherman Park and the Branch Out program. So Joe and Eric, take it away and tell us more about all all things tree related.
Sure thing. And Mabel, I saw you had your hand up. I'm gonna get the slide set up if you had a question.
I did. I wanted to ask Terry, is there a cost to utilize your building? You know, if let's say Sherman Park Community Association wanted to host something there, is there a cost to utilize the building? Or, you know, if we brought youth from Sherman Park there, would there be a cost for planning programming?
I'd probably need to see exactly what the details are. I get, like, for simple meetings, no. No, I never want to charge anybody for simple meetings. We want to make sure that we have space available for those. As we talk about like the programming piece, we can always try to work something out in terms of the programming piece. And so it could be where if we provide this programming for you and the kids, it could be where we ask that, hey, can you volunteer 2 hours of your time on the land that we're restoring? So I like to believe that bartering still works.
Bartering still works.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, here I go. Did that work? Is it full screen? Okay, I got some head nods, great. So hi everybody. It's good to see folks on the call here today. I am Joe Fitzgerald with the Milwaukee Water Commons. I'm a program manager with Water Commons, and I'm tag teaming this presentation with Eric Deshotel. I'm not sure if his
Hey, everybody.
there he is. Right on. So we're here to share a little bit about the Branch Out Milwaukee program and some of the work that's going to be going on in the Sherman Park neighborhood. Continued from work over the past couple of years and continuing throughout this year and next year. And so wanted to share a little bit about the program itself, a little bit about who we are, and then also have some conversation about trees and spring. So we'll get into that in a little bit here too. But I'll kick us off and move pretty quickly through some of these first slides so there's time for questions or however. Milwaukee Water Commons is a nonprofit here in the city of Milwaukee. We are a cross-city network that fosters connection, collaboration, and broad community leadership on behalf of our waters. I often tell folks that what Water Commons does is really try to connect communities around Milwaukee using our shared relationship to water as a way to bridge those relationships. And our offices are over on the on Fond du Lac, over off about 17th and Fond du Lac. A lot of our work is to promote stewardship and equitable access to and shared decision-making for our common waters. So believing that we all have a common right and responsibility to water. We do a lot of advocacy and community programming around water spaces. And today we're here to talk about one of our programs in particular, which is, well, I guess it's a collective impact program. So I call it our program because we started to organize it, but it really is a program that's shared by many organizations here in the Milwaukee area. That's called Branch Out Milwaukee. So Branch Out's a collectively organized campaign that's focused on maximizing the benefits of Milwaukee's canopy by focusing on equity, public health, environmental health, climate resilience, and workforce development. So really trying to take an approach to growing Milwaukee's tree canopy and also maintaining the tree canopy that we currently have in a way that is equitable, recognizing that trees do not exist equally on the landscape, and that we also have an uneven exposure to environmental hazards that trees can help to impact. Sustainable, so with many partners thinking about ways to do work around trees and green spaces that will be building off the work that many folks before us have done, but also thinking 7 generations into the future about how this work can continue to have impact on folks living here in Milwaukee. Multi-dimensional work. So when we talk about trees, we aren't just thinking about planting trees, but we're thinking about what impact do trees and green spaces have on the health of our community, on the health of our environment. How are we building or growing our canopy to impact the environment with a changing climate, and also thinking about how investments in our city can also be leveraged for workforce development and economic impacts to really benefit folks who are living here, and again focus on that equity. And then also respectful. So oftentimes folks talk about trees and environmental projects and they don't really talk to the people impacted by them. or think about that. So our goal is to prioritize community leadership in the way that we talk about this program, and encourage and work with our partners to make sure that the people living here are at the center of the way that we approach the work on Milwaukee's tree canopy. So lots more information about Branch Out Milwaukee out there, and Eric and I are always happy to talk more about Branch Out Milwaukee, but I'm going to get into some of the things that are specific to the work that we're doing in the Sherman Park neighborhood. Branch Out Milwaukee is citywide, but we are doing work right now that's specifically focused in Sherman Park. And this is a program. We received funding through the National Fish and Wildlife Federation to continue to do work focused in the Sherman Park neighborhood for the next couple of years at least. And that work involves a few different project components that I'm going to talk about each individually. But it involves things like public tree planting events. And there's a few pictures scattered throughout this presentation of some fun tree planting events that we were able to have last year, and some of the folks on the call were able to attend those as well. It also involves a tree inventory in the Sherman Park neighborhood. And from that tree inventory, as we start to work with folks living in the neighborhood to get an understanding of what trees do exist in Sherman Park, also potential assistance with tree maintenance if there are maintenance needs for the trees on your property, and also tree planting as well. So if there are folks who don't have a tree on their property, or maybe would like another one, that we can also help and get more trees into the Sherman Park neighborhood. And then the other component that I'll talk a little bit about is the Sherman Park Neighborhood Tree Board, which is some of that resident leadership in the program, and something we're really excited about. I didn't know, well, I guess I had heard maybe, but hadn't made the connection about Eliana graduating from UEC or being involved with that. That's super cool connection. So so the first thing I want to do is just invite everybody on this call to come to 35th and Locust next Friday, April 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Next Friday is National Arbor Day. So all around the country, there will be folks having tree planting events to celebrate trees and the impact that they have on our environment and our communities. And so we will be planting trees on 35th and Locust. We'll start the day with some speeches and some ceremonies, and then lean in together to get some trees planted on that site that were selected by some of the neighbors living around the area. And we'll also have food and music and things like that for the day of as well. So it's a celebration, and resources as well. Excited that you'll be able to be there, Terry. And then also that there will be some other resources and organizations for folks to connect with as well in the Sherman Park neighborhood. And Arbor Day will be the first tree planting event that we do this year, but it will not be the last. And there are likely to be a number of public tree planting events taking place between 2023 and 2024. And I put on here just to scope for folks that generally when we're thinking about doing a public tree planting event, we're thinking about mostly we've been planting trees in vacant spaces if there's a vacant lot in the neighborhood. But what we're doing is looking at some of the environmental factors, getting some of that insight on how where a tree could be best positioned to have an impact on things like neighborhood flooding or heat exposure or air quality or something or along those lines. But then also working with resident leaders to identify those locations and prioritize and make sure that the places that trees would be planted also make sense for the folks who are living in the area. And so we've been doing that a lot in partnership with the Sherman Park Tree Board, but also are always open to ideas. If folks on the call or watching the recording have ideas about spots where trees could be planted in the Sherman Park neighborhood, please reach out to us and we'd love to talk more about it. So So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the components of the project. The first is the tree inventory. And so the tree inventory is kind of a twofold part of the program that we're doing here. And actually Eric is on the call, can answer some more questions about the tree inventory. Because it's oftentimes Eric who's going out and connecting with residents about the trees on their property. And so basically what this is when folks are making decisions about funding for trees and green spaces, or thinking about making management plans for geographic area around trees, they often are looking at what trees currently exist. And even though there's a pretty good record of the trees that exist on our city streets, there's not a very good record of the trees that exist on private property. And so the first kind of touch point for us is to be able to connect with residents and get an understanding of what trees do exist in Sherman Park, or maybe where they don't, so that we can advocate more for funding and resources to support some of the needs around tree maintenance or planting trees or however. And so the first touch point for us is to connect with residents. And so if you have a tree on your property, please let us know. I wanted to share a little bit about what a tree inventory looks like. And this is a photo of one of the tree inventories that we did last year at Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church. And the tree board was involved in that one as well. What happens is you give us a call or let us know that you're interested in a tree inventory, and we'll schedule some time for Eric to come out and connect with you. And basically Eric will walk with you around your yard and speak to you about, or talk to you about your trees, kind of your relationship with the trees themselves, ask questions about your vision for the site. How do you feel about the tree? Would you like additional trees in your yard? Eric will take a look at the health of the tree, do a measure the tree itself, take a look at how it's doing, see if there's anything that should be handled by a professional arborist, and also give recommendations about where you could potentially plant things in your yard, and also bring some expertise on what kinds of plants might be a good fit to brainstorm with you about it. The inventory itself is totally free, and what you end up walking away with is a written report about everything that you talked about, and a map of your property that shows where your tree is, what kind of tree it is, maybe some links to resources and information about that tree, and also some of the different spaces where you talked about potentially planting things, with some notes about what kinds of plants might fit there and things that you could consider as well. So hopefully that this becomes not only us learning about the trees on your property, but also a resource to be able to support your vision for your yard as well. And as we do the inventory, this is also where we start to get an understanding of how to implement some of the other parts of our program around tree maintenance and tree planting. So oftentimes when we talk about planting trees, the first concern that we get is, I have a tree on my property and it keeps dropping branches on my house, or it keeps dropping branches on my garage or the car, however. And it's understandable. There's a major need for tree maintenance in the city of Milwaukee, especially as we're having these major storms happening more and more frequently. We've seen, I don't think any of us are unaware of some of the hazards that having branches falling have caused in the city over the past couple of years. And so it's not realistic to think we're going to plant a whole bunch of new trees and not be able to maintain the ones that we have as well. So for part of our program, what we've been trying to do is use a good chunk of our funding to be able to support residents in being able to maintain the trees on their property. And so we piloted this over the last year, working with around 25 residents in the Sherman Park neighborhood to connect them with a professional arborist when we had identified tree maintenance needs, and then to help to pay for some of that maintenance as well. So the first step in this process is to sign up for the tree inventory and get that work done. And Eric will give you his assessment on what kind of maintenance would need to be done. And the second step is we're working right now to really take a look at some of the the income requirements are often what we do, where what we did last year is we tried to have a tiered approach to tree maintenance. So our focus being trying to use as much to do this in a way that was equitable, so that we were giving funding to folks who were in the most need for assistance, based on either the level of risk from the maintenance that they had in front of them, or from their need for financial assistance. And so we'll assess that as funding becomes more and more available, and then use our list from the tree inventory to start connecting with folks in the fall to set up time for a tree risk assessment. Very similar to what Eric did, comes out to speak with you about the tree on your property, but this time it's done by a professional arborist company who can say, this is the need and this is how much it will cost. And then after that, we start to talk to you more, once we have a dollar amount, about the scope of work and how much assistance Milwaukee Water Commons is able to provide. And we move from there in the fall to get those things scheduled and have an arborist come out to your property and take care of the work for you, either helping to pay for the full amount or doing kind of a co-pay stipend to be able to support the amount that it costs to do that tree care. And this, in our eyes, is a way to again, support some of that tree maintenance, but also to develop relationships with professional arborists and get some of this work happening in the neighborhood where there may be need. So, and then this year, we will also be starting to do tree planting on private property, which we did not do over the last couple of years. But the idea this time being, if there were folks who identified that they would like to plant trees on their property and there was space for it, that we would then connect with them through the inventory. And then pretty soon we're going to be starting to connect with residents who express some interest in planting a tree, to start to think about what tree might fit in that space, think about what preferences they have for tree planting. And just to help pick the right tree for the right place. So you don't end up planting a tree under a power line that's going to grow 40 feet, but you also get to plant the trees that you're interested in. And then we also will be working with partners to have someone come and pick up the tree from a local nursery and have it planted on your property. So you work with us to figure out what tree you want planted, and we work with someone to have that tree planted on your property as well. So. And the last step before I transition things over to Eric to talk more about tree care, and maybe we'll take some questions before that as well, is the Sherman Park Neighborhood Tree Board. And so I just wanted to share this slide, which shows this was a virtual meeting. Maybe on next Friday, we'll get a better picture of all the tree board members if we can. But this was a meeting that was kind of hybrid, and some of the tree board members here represented in the photo. The Sherman Park Neighborhood Tree Board is a resident-led group that we're really envisioning and helping to work with, wanting residents to be involved to inform some of the decisions that are made about trees and green spaces in Sherman Park, and also helping to bridge connections between folks who are living in the Sherman Park neighborhood with some of the other resources or decision makers who are making decisions about trees in the neighborhood. And so this is a group that meets monthly and is organizing planting projects or thinking together about how to lean in on decisions around trees and green spaces in the neighborhood. And just really exciting to see this group come together. So if you have a tree thought that you're interested in connecting with the tree board around, or if you're interested in learning more about the tree board, please reach out to us about that as well. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Yes. So I guess, Eric, if it sounds good to you, maybe we could take a couple questions if there are any.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
How many are on the tree board?
There are currently 13 members on the tree board. Yes. Mhm.
And then regarding the 35th and Locust tree planting, how is parking over there?
Mhm. Good question. So
Not good.
yeah, it's not the best. It's not the best for parking. And so, 35th and Locust are both main streets, which is like both has positives and negatives for the event, I suppose. So it'll be visible, but I think we'll be parking mostly on the side streets and walking over to the event.
Okay.
Joe, can you check over with the bus people and see if we can park on their bus lot? They don't use that one corner right around the fence.
Yeah,
Maybe they will let us park over there or just down where their employees park, which is just down the block.
mhm.
Check with them and see. They might let us do it for a couple hours.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. Mhm.
So Eric, I sent you that one person on the
Yeah, can
chat.
you send that to me in an email, Steve, so I can
Yeah,
add that to my.
I'll send it to you. I just keep forgetting. It's sitting right here next to me.
I know the feeling.
When she voted, it's on the sample ballot. I gotta get a hold of Eric.
I have a question for you, Joe.
Please.
So with you talked about the tree planting days that you're going to be having. Do you have a list of the, I guess, of the locations that you're going to be planting the trees this spring and or summer?
We don't yet. No.
Okay.
So essentially where we're at right now is we've been working with the tree board to identify potential planting spots. So we have a list of 2 potential locations. But what we do is when we've identified a location with some of that environmental data and some of the input from the tree board, we start to go through a community engagement process around that lot. And so we'll start to do flyering in that space, do some door-to-door engagement with neighbors, and start to get an assessment, not only from folks living in the neighborhood, but from folks like specifically on the block where the tree will be planted, whether or not that's something that they want to happen. And so we've done that process now for the Arbor Day location and got a lot of great buy-in. But for the other few locations, that's kind of a next step for us, is to start to do some of that engagement so we can have a list of places that we're considering into the spring and summer. So not yet, but soon, hopefully. Yeah. Mhm. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Eric and we can take more questions at the end too. Okay. I'll hand it to you, Eric. I'll control your slides. Just give me a nod.
All right, sounds good. All right, so lastly, just to finish up, we kind of wanted to just touch on like what's happening in spring in Wisconsin. So real quick poll, what are you all seeing out there? What are signs of spring for you? Free to jump in and say something, or don't if you don't want to.
One of our neighbors, they were all excited about what we were doing last year, so he went. He's at one of the, he's in 8th grade, and it was plant a tree in your backyard. He went and got a tree himself at
Nice.
Miners, and then asked me to come over and help. They're so excited. The tree's blossoming this year, all this spring. So they want me to come over and see it. So they're all excited. So congratulations. That was cool.
That's awesome.
I know it was awesome.
For me, signs of spring are just preparing for gardening.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's that time of the year, right? Suddenly you realize all the stuff you left behind last year is still there.
Yep.
I do want to mention that I had the tree inventory done on my home, on my property. And I also had to have some trees cut back because they were overhanging my home. So I do want to commend Hoppy Tree Service for the work that they've done. I unfortunately didn't get to use the free service, but I did pay for the service, and I'm glad that Milwaukee Water Commons partnered with Hoppy. They were extraordinary in their service of what they did, how they cleaned up behind themselves. So that's a wonderful partnership that you all have created with Hoppy. So thank you for that. And I hope other residents use it as well.
Yeah, that the tree you guys worked on across the street from us, everybody's still talking about it. That tree was a nasty tree, and they trimmed it back, and everybody's so excited. The big storm a week or two ago, nothing fell in anybody's house.
Awesome.
So that was cool. The hoppy was they're so pleasant, and we use them all the time. So the guys were so excited to be across the street from us and that type of thing. So it's kind of cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, Joe, if you want to advance the slide quick. So one of the first things that's happening in spring is that we're having longer days. So the sun is moving higher in the atmosphere, which means that the angle is going to be a little bit different. And we're also having extended hours of daylight. Next slide. This also leads to increased levels of water out there. And this is actually from April 8th to 11th this year up in at the Nemajit River near Superior, Wisconsin. So over the course of 3 days, the river rose like 8 feet. So we've got increased temperatures, longer days, and we've got more available moisture, which is all a combination of things sending different messages to plants. So first off, the day length increasing is the signal for plants to start waking up, and the temperature is what controls the rate of them waking up. So those of you that were in town last week for the heat wave probably saw things going really quickly into your yard as far as blooms and flowering, and then we had the snow or the cold weather back again, and suddenly everything needed to take a breather for a minute. You can go to the next slide, Joe. So in fall, trees, woodies, most of the deciduous plants, and even the evergreens too, all put on these end of the year buds. And we know that that's where the growth for next year starts. But my favorite thing, and one of the coolest things that I know about plants, Joe, you can go to the next one. This bud here is for a horse chestnut, which has like a really resiny, sticky bud on it. That bud itself is probably either between the size of like your pinky or your thumb. But if you click the next one, Joe, inside of that large bud is actually everything that's going to come out of that bud this spring. So next slide. So as the temperatures start to rise and water starts moving through the plant, those leaves and flower buds start to inflate with more water. It's basically the same idea as those little dinosaur pills, you know, that you drop into a bowl of water and watch them expand into something huge, right? So Joe, you can advance again. And so that's it, inflated a little bit more. Now that flower stalk is about, 2-3 inches long. Those leaves are about, 2 inches for the stalk and another 2.5 inches for the foliage there. Next one, Joe. But that eventually grows into like an 8 to 12 inch flower panicle. And all that stuff was already formed last fall. So that's why it's important that in fall, we make sure that our plants are hydrated well, because that ensures that those buds don't desiccate over winter and you end up with stuff not growing. But yeah, the idea that something so tiny, like literally the size of your thumb before its first knuckle, ends up producing a flower panicle that's like that big out there, right? Next slide. So in my yard, one of the things that I got to enjoy was the start of all our bluebells coming up, along with an early daffodil. But one thing that you might not know about your yard space is that the important stuff is actually not really there to be seen. Next slide, or advance it or whatever. So I want to focus here on this area. Next. So inside those leaf litters, there are chrysalids that hold the butterflies and moths. We all know the monarch comes up from Mexico every year, hangs it up here, eats all the milkweed, and then heads back down to warmer weathers for the winter months. Not every pollinator does that, though. A decent chunk of them actually overwinter here in Wisconsin, but they can't do that without the proper habitat. So for us, the swallowtails, next one, Joe, the leaf roller or leaf cutter bees, next one, and even the giant Luna moths all rely on having leaf litter and standing like dead plant material so that they can use to nest in over the winter months. I don't know how many of you have seen one of those like bee habitat. It's like a birdhouse, but for bees, but not like a beehive or anything. But basically you take a bunch of like bamboo rods and stack them together and put them into a box to have outside. Well, if you have a bunch of plant stems outside, guess what? That's already a bunch of hollow plant material that they can be nesting in. So it's really important that in the the fall months that we leave up our plants over the winter because that provides vital habitat for insects, and that we don't start cleaning that stuff up until we get to about the time that the plums and cherries and crab apples are starting to flower in fall. Because by that point, temperatures will have risen enough that these insects will have woken up. But if you start cutting them back too early, then you're also cutting back either the insects themselves or the spaces that they're relying on to keep them happy and healthy. Next one, Joe. So one other thing that we can do to benefit our pollinators, especially in Milwaukee, is to plant early spring blooming plants. So here's a couple of my favorite native ones that we've got. On the left, we've got bloodroot, which has a beautiful dark red stem, really beautiful white flower on it that's about, 2.5 inches wide. On the right, we've got shooting star, which gets its name because it looks like a shooting star, although they're all, kind of pointing downward. But that's a really great woodland spring ephemeral. So if you've got a shady spot, both of these are great options. Next slide. Bluebells is another awesome one for early spring. My yard is covered with those this time of the year, and I'm like really excited when I get to go home tomorrow to take a look at them again because it's hands down one of my favorite plants in the yard. Bluebells love like a good rich soil, but again, if you've got heavier shade, like they're a phenomenal option for that space. On the right, we've got Canadian columbine, which has those dainty black stems. Columbine is a fantastic choice for that partial shade area, but especially where it's a little bit drier. So while bluebells and bloodroot and shooting star might like it to be a little bit more average in moisture, the columbine can take a drier spot. So if you've got drier shade that you struggle to grow stuff in, try one of those. Next slide. And let's not forget our woodies, which, you've got native plants like the black cherry there in the upper right side of the screen. But we've also got plants that are native to North America, not necessarily Wisconsin, like the eastern redbud there to the left, which, by the way, if you have one of those flowers are edible. They taste like a sweet pea almost. So if you're hankering for like the fresh garden taste of a snap pea, but you don't want to wait until summer, find one of those blooming and feel free to pluck a few of them off. And then let's not, of course, forget the non-natives too, like lilac. These are all early spring blooming plants that are really vital for our pollinators. And while it's great to prioritize natives in those spaces, at the end of the day, what is reliably able to grow as well as like produces a good amount of flowers is what's going to really be helping our pollinators. So next slide. So in spring, what is it that you can do for your plants? Well, like we said, it's best to like clean up or remulch your beds until like once we get to like late spring or so. Don't do it like super early as soon as we have like the first warm day because we don't want to deprive those insects of habitat. You can also participate in no mow May and let your lower growing stuff in the yard start to flower. Let those dandelions go. Let's be real, we're not getting rid of them anytime soon, so you might as well enjoy them and let the bumblebees enjoy the pollen off of them. But as far as like plant health goes, going back to those first few slides about what's happening in spring, we have more water, we have temperature changes, and we have longer daylight, right? So in general, that tends to progress at like a steadier rate, but if things start going crazy like they did last week, things can get a little bit ahead of themselves. So if we have exceptionally hot, dry, and windy weather in spring, take a look in your plants. Don't water them right off the bat, but keep an eye on them. If they start to droop and wilt, then that might be a good chance to go out there and give them a little bit of water before they start getting too drought stressed early on in the season. If you've got stuff that's a little bit more sensitive to late frosts, like say a special rose bush, or maybe you've got a fancier perennial out in your bed, you might want to use a cone or a bucket. Typical 5-gallon bucket works great for some of this stuff to protect them from those late frosts if we go from having like steady 40s and 50s down to like a 20-degree weather. When I got back from Arizona on Sunday, I was kind of saddened to see all the bluebells were all a little bit wilty because of that cold snap that we had. But thankfully, because it only went down to about 30, they bounced right back. But if it had gone down to like, 10 degrees or 0 degrees, we might have had some significant problems with that. So if we're going to have those really rapid temperature changes, that's a good signal for you to get out there and start protecting some of your like more specialty plants. Another thing to remember too is that while watering is important for plants, water also needs to have leaves in order to exit the plant to move through it. And so if the plant barely has leaves on it yet, it really doesn't have that high of a demand for water. So don't overwater things too early in the season. You know, it's fairly easy to get stuff to rot its roots out because you're thinking you're helping. And unfortunately, the symptoms of drought stress and overwatering are somewhat similar. So keep an eye out for that. But those are 5 things that you can be doing in your landscape to help your plants along, help your insect communities along. And most importantly, though, get out there and enjoy it. It's a short season and there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening. So that's all I got.
So just wanted to add our contact information here on the last slide for folks. If you're looking to get a hold of us, ask additional questions. I know we need a little bit of time to close out. So I'll stop sharing my screen here and maybe we can answer some questions in the chat if there's anything else that folks are thinking about.
Kind of hard not to overwater when we're getting downpours.
Right. Well, and you can't control what nature is doing, right? But it's one of those things where it's like, well, if we have a lot of rain, then we have like 2 days of hot, dry, windy weather, like check the soil moisture, but don't just think that because it's gotten warmer, you got to add water. But also don't just think, oh, because we've had water, we're good to go. I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to kind of like watch it and pay attention. And thankfully, a lot of plants have like a pretty good range of stuff that they can tolerate. Otherwise, they wouldn't be growing here, right? But for those of you that are growing like more of the specialty plants, or maybe you're pushing your luck a little bit trying to grow something you probably shouldn't be growing, that can be some good advice to make sure that stuff's doing well out there in spring.
Yeah, for my yard, the daffodils are really the first. Or there's a crocus, but when the daffodils started blooming, I saw a bumblebee in the backyard, and I thought, not going to find anything to eat. I don't know if they go to daffodils or not, but I'm going to be getting a rain garden installed at the end of May, and I want to add some of these plants you were mentioning.
Awesome. And there's lots of great resources out there. I'm at the Lakes and Rivers Conference in Stevens Point right now, but there's a good list of native plants for rain gardens. Actually, let me see if I can grab that quick. Literally just picked it up today. But yeah, from the
Yeah, I'm getting it installed by the MMSD program.
Awesome. Yeah, so the Healthy Lakes and Rivers 350 square foot native planting companion guide, which, granted, this is a lot of stuff that's based for, more like water's edge plantings, but a lot of the plants still work, but they've got some great resources in there as far as charts on like what grows where, and my screen is blurring it out. But it's a good resource. I'll put the link in the chat here for it. I think they have it available online. But yeah, lots of great local resources in Wisconsin to use for plant information. Genesis Nursery has a really great website available with both native plants and like just ornamental plants on there too. There's also information from the DNR, and of course MMSD has some really great information too. But yeah, here's the link that I'll drop in the chat here for anyone that's interested in finding that. There we go.
Yeah, I just picked up the over here, Gardener's Guide to Prairie Plants. And this has got 600 pages. It's got everything you want to think about. But phenomenal book. And you heard it the 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? He was on talking about this.
Right.
I grabbed it from the library right away. So it's a great guide.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe Fitzgerald, Eric Desatel. I think I pronounced that right. For your presentation from the Milwaukee Water Commons. And I'd also like to thank Terry Evans from the Urban Ecology Center for all of the information you shared today as it relates to Urban Ecology Center and all the things that you're doing. I did want to leave space and some room. We have about 6 minutes left for any green announcements. Anything that is coming up on your block, anything that's happening in your community garden, please share that with us now. if you have anything, and I do have a list of items I just want to reiterate and also talk about for the next couple of minutes as well. So if you have anything, please share. So Ann, do you have anything coming up in your garden?
No, we had our big event where Groundwork Milwaukee came and helped us pull. They brought students from Pathways High School and pulled weeds and spread the good soil on top of each garden, mulched the fruit trees, and just cleaned up the place. We got a good start painting the bulletin board, but other than that, it's just the next step is just the gardeners coming and doing their own thing.
That's awesome. You're ahead of the game. Anyone else have any announcements?
We're in the position right now of going to host Greenprint from Madison to come and look at our neighborhood. So all those springs are in our blocks, right along Capitol and Melvina. They're committed now to come and to look at what we've got with the potential of planting some trees. So we may be calling on Eric to come over and wander around in our backyards and see what we've got, to see what we can do to start to alleviate some of the water that we have in our backyards. So we're making some
What
progress.
did you say
there.
was coming?
It's Greenprint, the group that was with us a while ago.
Right.
So they're doing the initial study with MMSD
Okay.
to look at our area and the springs that are in our backyards, and then to
Mhm.
begin to look at what we can do to start to bring down that water,
Yeah.
the amount of water we have in our backyard. So,
Right, and for
Progress.
those of you who may be watching this video afterwards, the Grassland Manor area has a lot of natural springs in the community, in the backyards, under the homes, under the, your backyard. So we do want to make sure that you're aware of the services that are available. Steve, if you want to talk a little bit more about Greenprint and what they offer, that would be great.
Greenprint is basically a program where they begin to analyze the neighborhood and the water table, and then they begin to work with MMSD on what they've done in the past, what can be done going into the future, and then to come up with a game plan, probably at least 3 community meetings with the neighbors to begin to talk about it, look at what we did, 5, 6, 8 years ago, probably some of the wrong stuff, but we tried. And to begin to kind of build on what we did then. And then to begin to look at some of the things that really need to be done. One of the problems is Capitol Drive. Capitol Drive is up above our where our yards are. And so that keeps that water in our yards. It's not going into the sewer. Sewer is above us. And so we need to look at that. And then we need to look at our laterals in our own houses. And how those laterals are laid out. The city's been doing that last summer, but we need to do more of that. And then the third thing is to look at Midtown. That area over there was a swamp once upon a time, what was Capitol Court. And that water comes our way. And what I never realized, and Jay pointed it out, the big crisis we have is the railroad tracks at 35th in the industrial corridor. Our water is to go that way toward the river. Our land is actually slanted that way. And the only opening we have is over there on Capitol Drive. And he says, you wonder why that all floods? So I don't know. So all that water is trying to get through there. And that's why that street floods all the time. And he said that railroad is a dam. And they need to look at how they punch holes under that railroad to keep our water going toward the river. And he said, we're right in the middle of it because Deneen Park is where the original spring is. That's what starts Lincoln Creek. Now all that water is in our neighborhood all the time. And so we need to kind of study all that. So it'll be a big project. That's an understatement too.
It's a big project, but thank you for kind of sharing that information, because I think what a lot of people don't know is that we do have natural springs in our community. And so if you are having some flooding, please connect with us so that we can come up with some resolutions that we should be able to come up with our work with MMSD. So, any other green announcements? And as we wrap up, I'm going to share a couple of things. So Bethel Bethany Church will be hosting a cleanup this weekend for Earth Day. Another announcement, a shout out to Arbor Day on April 28th with Milwaukee Water Commons, Sherman Park Community Association, the Department of Forestry with the City of Milwaukee. I think I'm missing a couple people, but we will be hosting that event on the northwest corner of 35th and Locust from 10 until 2. So we hope to see you all there. Another thing too is that Sherman Park will be hosting our neighborhood cleanups the weekend of May 6th and May 7th. So those are a Saturday and a Sunday. We are hoping that residents get engaged, get involved, engage your residents on your block. If everybody is cleaning up in front of their home, we will have a clean community. So I encourage you to do that. SPCA will print all of your flyers that you want to distribute to residents in your neighborhood. So give us a call at 414-444-9803, or you could also email me at Mabel, MABELL, @shermanpark.org, and we will print your flyers for you. We did just send out an email to all residents, I think it was just last week, with a template that you can use to get your cleanup flyers printed. The last thing is there is Earth Day in May. That's coming up on Saturday, May 20th at the Mary Ryan Boys and Girls Club. Will be right outside the door there in Sherman Park. I think we still have to solidify a time, but we are looking at this date, May 20th, to be the date of our Bloom and Groom plant sale. We will have annual plants as well as vegetables and herbs. So we want you to come out so you can beautify your neighborhood and your home as well. Last but not least, June is going to be the month of home ownership month. We are moving our housing resource fair to the month of June. Right now, we have a tentative date of June 24th. That date from 9 until 12 noon will be our housing resource fair at the Mary Ryan Boys and Girls Club. Additionally, we will be hosting a meeting for everything that relates to housing, and we would love for all residents to participate and attend. That meeting is going to be with the Community Development Alliance, who's been charged with helping to develop housing in the Central City in Milwaukee for affordable housing needs. So we do want to have a conversation with them, and we will definitely let you know of that date. So again, thank you all for joining us. Terry Evans from Urban Ecology Center, thank you for all your words of wisdom and exposing and expanding your space for community needs and use. And also to Joe Fitzgerald and Eric Desitel from Milwaukee Water Commons. Those of you who need tree maintenance, homeowners, please give us a call, give Eric or Joe a call so that we can do some tree inventory and tree maintenance on your properties. With that all said, it is 7:33. We thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful evening. And this video will be posted for all to watch on our Sherman Park Community Association website. So thank you once again for joining us. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time. You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. Good
Everybody.
job.
Good to see you all.